We shall now look at some simple applications of time-independent Schrodinger equation. Probably the simplest case of time-independent Schrodinger equation is the case of a particle which is not subject to any external force. In other words, the force acting on the particle F equals 0. There is no constraint on such a particle and it is free to move anywhere between minus infinity to plus infinity in any direction. We shall of course restrict ourselves to the case of a particle moving along one dimension only. Now, since in general F is equal to the negative of grad V, where V is the potential, for one dimension the corresponding equation would be F equal to minus dV by dx. It follows that if the force acting on a particle is 0, that is if F is 0, then V of x or potential must be constant. Hence, a particle moving freely under the influence of a constant potential or potential energy is known as a free particle. Further, if F is equal to 0, regardless of the value of the constant V, then we may, without any loss of generality, choose to add an arbitrary constant to V in such a way as to make the potential energy V equal to 0. Thus, we may assume a free particle as one whose potential energy is 0. Classically, a free particle may be either at rest, that is its velocity is 0, thereby its momentum and kinetic energies are 0, or it may have a constant value of momentum and hence constant kinetic energy. Further, there is no restriction on the value of this momentum or energy the particle may possess. In fact, it can have any value ranging from 0 to infinity in principle. We say the particle has a continuum of energy and momentum in the classical sense. We shall now investigate the behavior of a free particle as predicted by quantum mechanics. Let's now investigate the behavior of a free particle as predicted by quantum mechanics. To do this, we have to solve the time-independent Schrodinger wave equation by setting the potential energy term V equal to 0. You will recall that the steady-state equation for one dimension is given by dou squared psi of x by dou x squared plus 2m divided by h bar squared times E minus V times psi of x equal to 0. For a free particle, since V equal to 0 and since we are considering only one dimension, the equation becomes d squared psi of x by dx squared plus 2me divided by h bar squared times psi of x equal to 0. We can further simplify the above equation number 2 by taking 2me by h bar squared equal to k squared. Thus, we have the equation d squared psi of x by dx squared plus k squared psi of x equal to 0 as shown in equation 3. The general solution of equation 3 is given by psi of x equal to a e to the power of ikx plus b e to the power of minus ikx, where a and b are two arbitrary constants which have to be determined. The first term represents a monochromatic harmonic wave of constant amplitude a traveling along the positive x-axis, while the second term represents a monochromatic harmonic wave of constant amplitude b traveling along the negative x-axis. Let's assume that our free particle moves only along the positive x-axis. Thus, the required equation or solution, which may even be called as the eigenfunction of the Schrodinger equation, is psi of x equal to a e to the power of ikx. Now, the complete wave function incidentally would be psi of xt equal to a e to the power of ikx times e to the power of minus I by h bar into E times t. We will of course not be looking at the complete wave solution. We will restrict ourselves to the solution of the steady state equation. How do we calculate the expectation value? The analysis of the Schrodinger wave equation for a free particle is very instructive. Let's first ask what is the momentum of the free particle. Recall that the momentum operator for one dimension would be minus I h bar d by dx. Thus, when we operate the momentum operator on the wave function a e to the power of I kx, we get equations 1 and 2. Equation 2 clearly represents an eigenvalue equation for the momentum operator. Hence, we conclude that the momentum value, that is the eigenvalue of equation 2, is nothing but h bar k. In other words, the momentum of a free particle, which is h bar k, is precisely measured. What about the kinetic energy? If you look at the equation d squared psi by dx squared plus 2me by h bar squared psi of x equal to 0 shown in equation 3, we realize that it can be rewritten as minus h bar squared by 2m d squared by dx squared operating on psi of x equals E times psi of x shown in equation 4. This is clearly the eigenvalue equation for kinetic energy, since minus h bar squared by 2m d squared by dx squared is the operator for kinetic energy. Therefore, the value E shown in equation 4 must represent the kinetic energy of the free particle. Clearly, since 2me by h bar squared equals k squared, we get the kinetic energy as shown in equation 5 to be p squared by 2m. So we note that the kinetic energy of a free particle is also precisely determined. Let's now come to the question of position of the free particle. From the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, we know that delta px into delta x must be of the order of h bar. Since we precisely know the value of the momentum of the free particle, it turns out that delta px, the uncertainty in the momentum, should be 0. Which means, according to the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, delta x, the uncertainty in position, must tend to infinity. That means the particle's position is completely unknown. It's undeterminable. Why do we get this absurd result? Actually, it's not absurd at all. It is because the complete wave function of a free particle that we obtained is actually not normalizable at all. The complete wave function of a free particle actually represents a monochromatic wave of infinite extent as shown in equation 6. So, if we try to normalize equation 6, we end up with the integral a squared times integral 0 to infinity dx. Clearly, this integral or the solution of this integral will yield a squared to be 0 or a to be 0, which means the wave function psi of xt itself is 0. The wave function doesn't exist. What are we talking about here? We note that the absurd result a squared equal to 0 came because of the limits of the integral 0 to infinity. That means the particle was able to move from 0 to infinity. If we had confined the particle to a finite length, then the upper limit of the integral would not be 0 or would not be infinity. This would then yield a finite value for the integral, and the wave function would then be normalizable. We are going to develop this idea in the next slide when we talk about a particle being confined to a one-dimensional box of finite length. Let us consider a particle of mass m trapped in a one-dimensional box of length L with perfectly rigid walls. Let there be no field inside the box so that the potential energy of the particle is 0 inside the box. Hence, there is no force acting on the particle when it is inside the box. The entire energy of the particle will be purely kinetic. Let this energy be constant. Classically, this means the particle will move along the length of the box, bouncing elastically, since its energy, kinetic energy that is constant. Also, its speed will be constant while its momentum will keep reversing in direction but again remain constant in magnitude. It is to be noted that classically there is no restriction on the magnitude of the kinetic energy inside the box. In fact, classically the kinetic energy can have any value from 0 to infinity. We will now investigate the behavior of such a particle quantum mechanically. At the outset, we need a potential energy function which is 0 inside the box and infinity at the ends of the box and outside it. This form of potential energy function that corresponds to such a box is called an infinite well potential. In this slide, we schematically show the variation of potential for such a box. We also show the mathematical expression for the potential energy function. We note that there are three distinct regions. Region 2, where the particle is essentially a free particle moving in a field free or V equal to 0 region, and the regions 1 and 3, where the particle cannot exist, since it has to do infinite amount of work to surmount the infinite potential barrier. In other words, the particle is said to be trapped in a one-dimensional infinite potential well. It is clear that there will be a non-zero wave function in the region 2, while the wave function will vanish at the boundaries x equal to 0 and x equal to L and beyond on either side of the boundary. This situation is expressed as a boundary condition imposed on the wave function as follows. In fact, the boundary conditions are shown in the slide. Psi of x equal to 0 at x equal to 0 and psi of x equal to 0 at x equal to L. So therefore, let us now begin by writing the one-dimensional time-independent Schrodinger wave equation for this situation of a particle trapped in a one-dimensional box. The equation would be d squared psi by dx squared plus 2me by h bar squared psi of x equal to 0. Let us now solve the equation. If we substitute 2me by h bar squared equal to k squared, then the equation reduces to the form d squared psi of x by dx squared plus k squared psi of x is equal to 0. The general solution of this equation 1 would be psi of x equal to a sin kx plus b cos kx, where a and b are two arbitrary constants to be determined by using the boundary conditions. If we use the first boundary condition, namely psi of x equal to 0 at x equal to 0, we obtain that the constant b should be 0. Therefore, the wave function should be psi of x equal to a sin kx. To obtain the value of a, we use the second boundary condition, namely psi of x equal to 0 at x equal to L. This gives us the result a sin kl equal to 0. This means either a is 0 or sin kl equal to 0. Clearly, the choice a equal to 0 will give the trivial result that the wave function psi of x is 0 everywhere, which is obviously not possible. Hence, we have to assume that sin of kl must be 0. If sin kl is equal to 0, then from trigonometry, we know that kl should take the values n pi, where n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Or we can rewrite that k should be n pi by L. Hence, the required wave function is psi of x equal to a sin of n pi x by L. Now, it is important to note that the value n equal to 0 is not acceptable in the above solution, because if n equal to 0, then once again psi of x will be 0 everywhere. So, the wave function for a particle confined in a one-dimensional box is psi of x equal to a sin n pi x by L. Now, the constant a can be determined by using the normalization condition, as we will discuss in the next. Let us now write the complete wave function for a particle trapped in a one-dimensional box. Using the normalization condition, we know that the particle has to be somewhere between the limits x equal to 0 and x equal to L. Hence, we write the normalization condition integral 0 to L mod of psi x n x whole squared dx must be equal to 1. Substituting for psi nx as a sin n pi x by L and simplifying, we obtain the result a equal to root of 2 by L as shown in this slide. So, the complete wave function of the particle in a one-dimensional box will be psi nx equal to root of 2 by L multiplied by sin n pi x by L. The function psi nx are known as eigenfunctions. We note that for different values of n equal to 1, 2, 3, etc., there are unique eigenfunctions psi 1x, psi 2x, psi 3x and so on. The integer n is referred to as the principal quantum number, and the state described by it is called a quantum state. In the next slide, we will look at these eigenfunctions and a graphical representation of the probability density of these functions. Let's now take a look at the first four eigenfunctions that have been plotted as a function of x. and also the plot of the corresponding probability densities or mod of psi n x whole squared. What we observe is that in the quantum state n equal to 1, the probability density is maximum at x equal to L by 2. What does it indicate? Obviously, it means that the most probable position of the particle in the state n equal to 1 would correspond to the center of the box at a point x equal to L by 2. I urge the viewers to determine the expectation value for x for the state n equal to 1 and show that the expectation value for the state n equal to 1 is indeed L by 2. Let's take a look at the energy that can be possessed by the particle confined in a box. From the expression 2me by h bar squared equal to k squared and also using k is equal to n pi by L, one can obtain the expression for the energy of a particle confined in a box as En equal to n squared pi squared h bar squared by 2mL squared. There are two important observations I would like to make. The first one is that obviously the energy of a particle confined in a box is not a continuum. It has discrete values. That is, each quantum state is associated with a unique energy. The state n equal to 1, the particle will possess an energy E1 equal to pi squared h bar squared by 2mL squared. For the state n equal to 2, the energy would be 4 times more, that is 4 into pi squared h bar squared by 2mL squared. Thus, the particle confined in a box does not have continuum of energy but has a set of discrete energies. This is the basic idea of quantization of energy. We note therefore that the quantization of energy is a natural consequence of confining the particle within bounds. Each energy value is called an eigenvalue for the corresponding quantum state. There is another point I would like you to observe. Note that there is no state which corresponds to a zero energy. In other words, the minimum energy possessed by the particle is not zero but E1, which is pi squared h bar squared by 2mL squared. This is the fundamentally new idea. The non-zero minimum energy possessed by the particle is called zero-point energy and is not seen in classical physics. We will elaborate this concept when we discuss the next application of a quantum mechanical oscillator. Incidentally, the lowest energy state is referred to as the ground state, and states of energy higher than the ground states are broadly known as excited states. To excite a particle from a lower energy state to a higher energy state, one needs to supply the difference in energy between the two states. Correspondingly, when a particle de-excites from a relatively higher energy state to a lower energy state, the difference in energy will be emitted as a quantum of radiation. The results of the previous slide for a particle in one-dimensional box can be extended to a particle in three-dimensional box. That is, a particle of mass m confined to move in 3 dimensions within a box of dimension Lx, Ly, Lz. The walls of the box are again rigid and the particle cannot escape outside the box. Within the box, we assume the particle to be free, moving in a region of zero potential, and at the faces and outside the box, the potential is infinity. The potential is given by the two equations 1 and 2 shown in this slide. Now clearly, the total energy is purely kinetic inside the box. The wave function will vanish on the boundary and outside the box. So the three-dimensional time-independent Schrodinger wave equation for a particle in a 3D box will be del squared psi of xyz plus 2me by h bar squared psi of xyz equal to 0 as shown in equation 3. If you assume that k squared is equal to kx squared plus ky squared plus kz squared, which is equal to 2me by h bar squared, then we obtain the equation as del squared psi xyz plus k squared psi of xyz equal to 0. Substituting the value of k squared as kx squared plus ky squared plus kz squared in equation 5, we obtain three independent equations, one in x, one in y and one in z as shown by equation 6, 7 and 8. We identify these three equations as the equations of a particle in a 1D box which was solved earlier. The solutions to these three equations are psi of x is a1 sine kx times x, psi of y is a2 sine ky y, and psi of z is a3 sine kz z. Therefore, the total wave function would be psi of xyz is equal to a1 sine kxx times a2 sine ky y times a3 sine kz z. Applying the boundary conditions mentioned above, we can show that kx is equal to nx pi by lx, ky is equal to ny pi by ly, and kz is equal to nz pi by lz. On normalizing the wave function, we can also prove that the product a1, a2, a3 is square root of 8 by v, where v is the volume of the box, which is the product of lx, ly, and nz. So the complete wave function for a particle in a 3D box will be psi of nx, ny, nz, xyz equal to root of a by v times sine kxx into sine kyy into sine kzz. A look at the expression for the energy gives us the following. We note that the eigenvalues for a particular quantum state is determined by the values of the quantum number nx, ny, and nz. The ground state or state of lowest energy corresponds to nx equal to ny equal to nz equal to 1. Thus, for the state psi 111, the corresponding energy E111 is given by 3h squared divided by 8ml squared. Corresponding to this energy, there exists only one quantum state as mentioned earlier, that is psi 111. This state therefore described as a non-degenerate state. Suppose we consider the first excited state. The quantum numbers associated with the state and the wave function and the energy are shown in the table. For instance, for the wave function psi 112, the corresponding quantum numbers are nx equal to 1, ny equal to 1, and nz equal to 2. And the energy would be 3h squared by 4ml squared. For the wave function psi 121, nx, ny, and nz values are 1, 2, and 1 respectively. Thus, the corresponding energy E121 would be again 3h squared by 4ml squared. Similarly, we note for the quantum state 211 also the energy is 3h squared by 4ml squared. Thus, we note that the different quantum states described by the wave functions psi 112, 121 and psi 211 have all the same energy, namely 3h squared by 8ml squared. In this case, the energy levels are said to be threefold degenerate or triply degenerate. Thus, we come to the end of video 4. In the next presentation, video number 5, we will discuss the quantum harmonic oscillator and rigid rotator.